good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the February Ask Tom event. My name is Richard Evans, and I'm a product manager of Oracle Database Security. And I have a guest here, my colleague and friend, Alan Williams, who's going to talk to us about autonomous database authentication and authorization. So cool stuff that we're doing that he's been working for a while on with autonomous database and OCI IAM. As you guys know, we're going to record this call. Zoom gave you the warning, and it will be available later on the Ask Tom website. You can go to bit.ly/AskTomDBSec to check out that recording, as well as more than 2 years of other recordings at this point. If you haven't been here before, thank you for joining us. Database security office hours are a direct channel into Oracle Database Security product development. So each session, we're going to give you some announcements on what's going on with database security. We're going to have a technical presentation, and then there can be some Q&A at the end. So go ahead and mark your calendar for the second Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. Central, and join us in March as well. If you guys have questions along the way, either for Alan or not related to the discussion, please put those in the Q&A panel, and we'll have a dedicated section at the end of the meeting to talk about those. If we can't answer them, then you can reach out to us, or we can reach out to you offline, and we can take those questions offline. All right, let's go with some announcements. The January release update is out there for everybody, so please go take a look at that quarterly patch. The database version should be updated to 21.5 if you're on the 21C, or 19.14 for the 19C family. You can go check out the MyOracle support note 2118136.2 for patch numbers and more detail. Kind of the easiest way that I find to go about it is to go to that URL at the bottom, www.oracle.com/security-alerts. All right, in 19.14, what you're going to see is that there's a per PDB key store that's available for on-premises and cloud database services. This is also available in 1911, 1912, and 1913 with a patch that you can download from MyOracle support. The per PDB key store works with TDE wallets and Oracle Key Vault. Speaking of Oracle Key Vault 18C has had its final scheduled maintenance release. We talked about this last month, but I want to reiterate it again. We want our customers moving to 21C. 18C goes out of support in April of 2022, which at this point is 2 months away. So if you're still running Oracle Key Vault 18, please look at upgrading to Oracle Key Vault 21. You get lots of new features, and it is our long-term support release for Key Vault. All right, one note here, Alan covers this in his presentation too, toward the end, is just if you're going to look at autonomous database shared with OCI IAM, Alan's done a great job updating the database security guide for 19C to explain how to use this capability. And I'll paste this link into the chat so you don't have to write it down or memorize it. All right, next slide. All right, man, over to you, right?
Thank you very much, Rich. All right, so thank you all for joining us on the Database Security Ask Tom. I'm very excited to talk to you about something we just released, the autonomous database integration with OCI IAM. I mean, right now it's ADB-S, but shortly the autonomous dedicated will be joining this. So this is not typical with the database release cycle. It's a cloud release cycle, so things will be happening on a much faster note with this. And so just keep track of our the database security blogs to find out more information on this. All right, so what's our goals with this? When you got a cloud as a service in the OCI, it should be authenticating, authorizing with its own identity service, and that's what we're doing. The IAM users will be able to authenticate and authorize to the autonomous database. And this is the same credentials that can be used with other OCI services, and the database will be able to get credentials passed to it and be able to pass credentials to other services. So that's the overall goal. I'll tell you what we've got right now with the autonomous database. So talk about some of the key benefits, why you want to do something like this, and then go how the the operational flow, how the logins actually work. And then I'll do demonstrations for both the mechanisms. We actually implemented 2 mechanisms with this project, and then some of the links that give you more information. All right, so the key benefits, obviously the main one was a security group. So this enhances your security, this improves your security. Centralizing user authentication, authorization, user management in a centralized directory is a security best practice. You don't, instead of managing separate credentials in every database, it's just in a single in a single place. Minimizes those rogue accounts or zombie accounts, some people call them, when somebody leaves a company and they forget to take away all the accounts from all the different IT systems. This isn't just for databases, this is for any of your IT systems. This also helps centralize your lockout policy. So an attacker can't keep trying 10 times on every IT component to try to figure out the password, because the password for a user is probably going to be the same or very similar across a number of them. If you have a centralized system, you can say after 10 attempts on anything, it'll lock out. Right. And as opposed to a lot of things in security, with this one, there's a reduced maintenance burden on for your DBAs. Right? Instead of getting the I forgot my password, I got a new user coming in, need to change the privileges, need to here's somebody that's left. All those account management things that happen in every local database can now be managed within IAM. And all the what we call the joiners, movers, and leavers can be managed in IAM instead of locally in each database, saving a lot of time for the DBAs. And you get to use a single OCI credential for working with not just the databases, but with other services within OCI. And that's a huge benefit. You're not managing a separate one for every IT service in the cloud. So how does this work? We'll go through the operational flow, go through the setup, and then the demos, and then I'll reiterate a little bit about what you saw in the demos. So if you're familiar with how the Oracle password authentication process works, it's very similar. You work with CMU, with Active Directory or Enterprise User Security, with OID or OUD. It's very similar. You have a central storage for the database verifier. Instead of the database verifier, which is a one-way hash of the password being stored locally in the database, it's stored centrally in the central directory. In this case, it'll be IAM. So the user would log in, and because this is the same mechanism that we use from the client server perspective, all the DB clients that are supported today, all the tools and apps that work with username password login will work with this new IAM authentication authorization. Go through this, the clients will send a username. The ADB will need to get the verifier from IAM. Now, the verifier is sensitive, so not anyone can just get can request this from IAM. So the ADB, and this is an OCI thing, the identity for all the OCI components. There's a resource principle, service principles, instance principles. If you've been working in the OCI world, you hear about these principles, and this is how it identifies these components to IAM. So IAM knows that they're trusted. So the autonomous database can then make a call to IAM to get the user verifier. It'll go through the regular process with the clients, and once the user is authenticated, it now has to go through the authorizations phase, make sure that the user lands in a schema, because you're logging in as the IAM user, not as a database user. But it still has to have the context of a schema or a database user. So we'll get group information. It could be exclusive mapping from the IAM user to a database schema, or more likely into a group, which allows, could be thousands of users when they land in the database, they're using the same schema. And also you can get some additional global roles from that. Then you're also checking the login counter. This is that centralized lockout counter, making sure they didn't exceed the 10 counts. And if it'll clear the counter if they successfully authenticated, if they, and then they'll get the success fail message back to the user. So that's a process using the database password filter. And I'm emphasizing the IAM database password because that's a separate password than your OCI console password. All right, for a number of reasons, including that OCI console passwords can be multi-factor authenticated, which can't be done in this case with the database password. We decided to have a separate password for this, and that's something that it's a new attribute within your OCI IAM profile. All right, now the fun one is this new one, the SSO token-based database access. If you're familiar with Kerberos, a little bit like that, all the work is being done by the client side. So in this one, you do need new clients. With the data using the IAM database password mechanism, you can use the existing clients. Oh, using SSO tokens, you need new clients because they need to be able to talk to IAM and be able to work with the tokens. So you can have tools and applications that can request the token from IAM. And the way they get the tokens is they use a user credential, an existing user credential. It could be an API key. An API key is just a private public key pair. The public key is registered with IAM, and the private API key is stored on the client system. And this is a very popular mechanism for use when you're in the OCI world. You can also use a security token, which is your login token when you log into OCI. If you're using security token and you've exceeded the expiration for that, you'll be prompted to authenticate with IAM and get a new session or security token. The tool or app will use that credential, the API key or session token, to request a database token. The token will come back with a private key, and then it'll be sent to the database client, which will sign it and send it to the autonomous database. Now, the autonomous database will then use the resource principal to, you don't need to authenticate the user at this point. The user's been authenticated. That happened when they got the API key, when they got the security and session token, well before, even before the client got it. So all they have to do is make sure the DB token was signed by IAM. So they do that. And then they go through the exact same authorization process, get the groups information, make sure that the user is authorized to some schema in the database. Now, most, or probably at this point, because it's so brand new, none of the applications and tools are able to have been updated to connect with the IAM directly to get the database token. So we have a helper utility called the OCI command line interface, OCI CLI. And it's an existing tool. It's been extended to be able to get these DB tokens. And they can, again, use the same user credentials, API key, security token, pop up a browser to log to get a session token for the user if they need it. And then they can, same thing, request a DB token, get a DB token back. But instead of pushing it through the API because it's not connected to that mechanism, it actually drops it into a file location. There's default one that the new clients and OCI CLI understand, or you can specify a particular location. And then go through the same process. All right, let's talk a little bit about how this sets up, because there's some setup you need to do ahead of time, and then I'll talk about what the demo will show what the users need to do when they log in. So for the database server, for ADB-S, you do have to enable this configuration. It's not enabled by default, and this also enables a resource principal if you haven't already enabled it for a different reason for autonomous database shared. When ADB dedicated comes online, that will automatically be, this will automatically be enabled. You don't have to take this extra step. Then you have to, if you're using the tokens, the IAM SSO tokens, you do need to create a policy to allow users to access the database using these tokens. So you can, it's a typical policy, so you have to either use or manage. It could be any user, it could be groups connecting to the databases, and all databases in a tenancy, all databases in a compartment, or specific databases. So you can set the policy up any way you need to allow users to access the specific databases. If you're using the IAM database password for authenticating, again, that works with any of the clients, Then there's that new window, the new GUI addition in your profile for OCI IAM allows you to create a new database password. All right, then now you got to do the rest of the authorization things. And this is the same whether you're using IAM database passwords or IAM SSO tokens. You create the groups in IAM. You add the user to the group, and then you map those from the database. This is mapping that's done from the database side to IAM. So these are all maintained in each local database. And so you'll notice that you have a global user or schema. I usually call it a schema if there's not a particular human user attached to it. And this is called user shared. And this is mapped to an IAM group called all DB users. So in this case, all DB users are just going to be using this and land in the same schema. Because DBA Deborah is a DBA needs additional privileges and roles, that'll be those privileges and roles will be granted to this global role in the database. And when DBA Deborah authenticates the database, she will be able to pick up these additional roles outside of what's already granted to the global schema user shared. All right, let's hopefully the demo gods are with us, and we'll do the demos. The first one will be SQL Plus on premises. It's like I would be on my laptop here using the IAM database password mechanism, because any existing system will support that. So no changes needed for SQL Plus or supported database clients. And you just have to set up your SQL Plus with the instant client, just like you do for any connection with the autonomous database. There's the install, download the wallet, and then configure the environment variables. And then make sure you create your IAM database password. That's something you have to do. It's not an administrative task in IAM. Then run SQL Plus to connect. All right, and so here's what your OCI IAM screen looks like when you get in your profile. Under resources on the left side, you see database passwords, and then this allows you to create the database password. All right, we will jump into the demo. All right. I make sure that I set TNS admin correctly. And yep, it's set to the wallet location for a Phoenix database. And make sure I set up SQLnet.aura with the same location of the wallet, and I see directory equals the wallet for the Phoenix wallet, so that's correct. All right, now I'll go ahead and log in. Get started SQL Plus, and I'll connect as, you notice I connect as the IAM user, alan.williams@oracle.com. It's escaped because of the special characters. And as usual, it's not that exciting to see authentication happening in the database. So let's take a look at some of the sys context that comes with this. And let's take a look at current user. Remember, I mapped to a group. I'm a member of a group in IAM that's mapped to the user shared schema in the database. So current user is user shared. That's the schema. And it could be 1,000 different users that land in the same schema. Now, because I'm also a DBA, I have additional privileges being DBA. I'm in a separate group that's mapped to the senior DBA global role. And this has all the privileges and roles I need to do my tasks in the database. Now, if you look at for auditing purposes and things, there's additional information for my identity. An authenticated identity, it has my IAM username. Now, in the OCI world, there's a unique identity. It's unique across OCI, and that's your OCID. So everything has an OCID, the resources, tenancy, users. And so my enterprise identity is the OCID, is my OCID. Now that's unique across the OCI. And if you're familiar with CMU, with Active Directory or the OID, that used to be the DN, which was unique for the organization. Authentication method is I'm using password and this is the same that you'd see for CMU or OID if you're using password authentication with a global user. And the identification type, this shows global shared. So I'm using a shared schema, not exclusive. If I was using a one-to-one mapping between an IAM user and a shared and a schema, I would say a global exclusive. All right, so this is my screens in case the demo didn't work. All right, so I just want to quickly go over what you saw with that. You saw the user, myself, logging in through the tool. And my username got sent to ADB at alan.williams@oracle.com. ADB is already configured and set up and knows that it needs to get my verifier from IAM. So use the resource principal to get that information. Continues and finishes the login process, gets the groups, checks my login counter, and then finishes the authentication process. All right, now the fun one, this demonstration with the SSO token. Now, this is something I just, the SQLcl with the latest updates, it was pushed in recently. So this is the first time I'm demoing this. I'll be creating a video and a blog on this, but it's not out there yet. All right, so Cloud Shell, for those of you that don't know it, it's the command line interface in OCI. It gives you access to the command line within OCI. It's pretty cool. I haven't worked with it a whole lot before, but now after this, I'm planning to use it a whole lot more. Let me go ahead and start it up because I do have to. It looks like I'm logged in already. All right, and the Cloud Shell button is up here on the top right. And you just hit the button and it's creating the Cloud Shell machine. It needs to set up. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this and then get back to the Cloud Shell. Okay. So the cool thing with Cloud Shell, SQL Plus is already installed, SQLcl is already installed, OCI command line interface is already installed. So those things you don't have to worry about anymore. And then you just need to get that wallet. And it used to be a chore to get a wallet from Autonomous Database. You had to go to Object Store and then bring it back up. But now there's a CLI, the OCI CLI has a command just to grab the wallet from your Autonomous Database and put it into a location in your command line, your command line interface environment there. So that's all you have to do for setup. And once you have that, what you have to do is you have to get your token. These DB tokens we've been talking about, they can be used to access systems, so they're time limited, right? So these are about an hour long, and you start. Then once you get your token, and I'm not setting a location. I'm using a default location. It'll actually tell you where it is, and then you can start SQL, and then you got to set the configuration for where your wallet is sitting, and then you can connect. Now, your connect string is what you get from your Autonomous Database, or it's also in your TNS names.aura file that you download with the wallet. And you do need to add the token auth equals OCI token. That indicates that when you're doing a /login, that's where it needs to pick up the OCI token from the file system. And you could also have define a token location here if you're not using default location. All right, so let's go back to, it should be into the, yep, all right, and then go ahead and expand the screen. All right, the first thing I'll do is I'll use the CLI command to get a token. And that's OCI IAM. It's one of the IAM commands. DB token is the token I'm getting. It's a brand new token that we hit GA and from IAM in December, and we're asking to get it. And there's some other parameters you can do, like if I want to use a security token, that'll be the additional parameter. And if when I'm working in the Cloud Shell, it automatically knows the default is to get the delegation token. It's like an API key, except you don't have to do anything about it. It automatically, when you create a Cloud Shell, automatically creates a delegation token that's representing the user. So this DB token and private key are written to this particular location. Those are the default locations that the driver also knows about. And it gives you the validity time. All right, so now just start up SQLcl. SQLcl uses SQL don't log there. And I'm in. And 21.4 version does have this JDBC thin that has this particular one token capability. I want to set the environment variable. And that's correct. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and log in. And you can see the token auth at the very end. And I'm connected using the token authentication process there. Now, there's a little bit difference, and I'll run the same syscontext commands there. Current user, IAM, so because the same mapping that we did for we leveraged it for the IAM database password we're using for the SSO token. So I'm back to user shared, senior DBA global role. Those are because of the membership of in the groups in IAM. My authenticated identity is still Alan Williams. My enterprise identity is the OCID for me. And this is a difference here. The authentication method, instead of password global, it's token global, indicating we use a token to access the database. And because I'm still using a shared schema for mapping, that's what the identification type is. All right, and that is the demo. Let's see, go back through the screenshots. So a quick go over what you saw here. Saw it's autonomous database. I'm using the autonomous database shared. There's a policy in IAM that allows me to access any database with token in my tenancy. And then the Cloud Shell. The Cloud Shell already has SQLcl with the driver and the CLI already installed, which is really nice. And I'm using a delegation token. This is the token that represents the user. When you open up Cloud Shell and OCI, you've already logged in Cloud Shell, so they knows who you are. So it sets a delegation token in Cloud Shell for things like the CLI to use. And I'll be able to use that to get the DB token and then put that in the file location in Cloud Shell for when you log in with SQLcl with a /login, it'll pick up the DB token because you said you're doing token authentication and send that to the autonomous database. And then it'll go ahead and verify, make sure it's correct, get the groups, finish the authorization, and give me access. So that's what you just saw in the demo. Here's the resources. I wrote a blog about this in December. I also created, I think it's like 9 short videos. It's, in essence, this this presentation broken up into smaller segments, and the playlist is available on YouTube under the Oracle Database Product Management group. And as Rich mentioned, I have this whole new chapter in 19C, Chapter 7, that talks about the DB IAM integration, and plus it has links to other documentation like the ADB-S documentation, which I have here as well, and some of the other documents that also talk about this. And that's it from my side. I'll turn it back to Rich.
Thanks, Alan. Short and sweet. I like it. Right to the point. You know, demonstrations, got some good slides in there. And so, you know, we don't have to take the whole hour to go over something that is built into OCI and super powerful. So, hey guys, we're going to take questions next. We got a few of them. We just want to remind you that the recording of this will be available on Ask Tom's database security office hours website here in the next couple days. Our next database security office hours will be on Wednesday, March 9th. And I'm excited. We're going to talk about some major updates to Oracle Data Safe that if you're using Oracle Data Safe, you should see those this month, but we're going to really kind of dive into those in the March database security office hours.